What's up, Sen Squad? Welcome back to another Brawl Stars video, and today a new Brawl Talk just came out. And we're gonna ignore all the crazy, spooky stuff for now, and in this video I want to talk about the new brawler Colette and her stats, things you probably couldn't just figure out from the Brawl Talk by watching it normally. And then I'm going to give you actual strategies and tips that you can start thinking about based on these stats, so that when you unlock her, you can push a ton of trophies right away. So this future update's going to be pretty small, but I am still going to be making a Season 3 Brawl Pass value guide, and whether or not you should buy that later this week closer to the update, so make sure to subscribe if you want to know when that releases. But all signs are pointing to actually another update in the middle of the season in October, where we might get a ton more content. Literally, this sign on the starpark.biz website has 10/10 on it, October 10th. It's probably a date, maybe it's not, but probably is. So a lot of exciting stuff coming on this channel. But anyway, let's talk about Colette now, and then get into exactly how you want to play her once this week's update comes out, since that is the new content that you're really gonna want to know about right now. So based on the footage from the Brawl Talk, I was able to calculate her max health, which is going to come out to 4,480. And now in terms of her main attack, it's going to last 2/3 of a second, so it's a pretty quick projectile speed. It just shoots that one heart-shaped shot in a straight line with a range of 9 tiles, so nothing too special on the surface level there. I calculated her reload speed to be just about 2 seconds, maybe a little bit over. But what really gets interesting is how her attack actually deals damage. So whenever you hit an enemy, it deals 35% of their current health rounded down. So no matter what their max health is, just whatever health they're currently at, it takes 35% of that value. If it's a decimal, it rounds it down to the nearest whole number, and it does that amount of damage. Now this obviously does not apply to boxes, stationary targets like the Ike turret or the heist safe, because that would just be ridiculously broken if you could take out 35% of that with just a single shot. For those things, it's just going to be a fixed amount of damage, which we don't know yet. But going back to the brawlers, this percentage based damage is really interesting, because when your opponents are at full health, you're going to be dealing a ton of damage. For example, the max possible damage you can deal would be hitting a full health Frank, who also has the sponge star power equipped, so he starts at 10,060 health, and you deal 35% of that, which is 3,521 damage with just a single shot at close range or at far range. This isn't like Piper, where her distance affects her damage, so even just at close range, one shot, auto aim it, 3,500 damage. That's really cool to think about. But then on the flip side, if you have a brawler who's only at 10 health, they're just about to die, 35% of that is 3.5, and you round that down, so you're doing 3 damage with a single shot, which is obviously very bad. And since they are rounding it down, that means if you're facing a brawler that has 2 or 1 hit points, 35% of that isn't going to be above 1. So when you round it down at just 0, you're doing absolutely no damage. So that means it's impossible to kill a brawler with your normal attack, and that's assuming there's no minimum to this damage. So maybe it is just 35% no matter what, until it goes down below like 100 damage or something like that. So it might make sense for them to add a minimum. Personally, I don't think they need one, and I'll explain why later in this video. But that is something to consider, is that you're going to have an insanely high amount of value by attacking high health brawlers who are close to full health, and very little value from attacking people who are already heavily damaged. So now just overall, to look at how Colette is compared to previous brawlers we had, I think a good comparison is B, because B also just has a single projectile, can be at far range or close range, and for the most part it deals a fixed amount of damage. It can be a charge shot or it can be not a charge shot. So a normal shot for B is 1120 damage, and a charge shot is 3080 damage. So average those two and you're gonna get about 2,100 damage, but you're not gonna hit that supercharged shot all the time. So on average with B, you're probably gonna be doing anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 damage. And now if you want to do 1,500 to 2,000 damage with Colette, you need to be hitting a brawler that has above 4,286 hit points, which is actually a large portion of the brawlers when they're at max health. So if you're just sniping these brawlers from far away, a lot of times you can be doing more damage on average than B. But once you start attacking brawlers that have like 3,000 to 4,000 health, she starts to have lower damage, more similar to brawlers like Sandy. And then once you get below 3,000 and you're attacking those brawlers, you get into Poco level damage, which is really not good, and you really don't want to be hitting people at that range. You would rather be hitting people who have a higher amount of hit points still left on them. And I'll get into how this applies to the strategies that you want to adopt when you're actually in the middle of a game with Colette. But first, I do want to go over her really interesting super mechanics. So her super range is slightly longer than her normal attack at about 10 tiles, and her super lasts about 1.5 seconds, and she goes forward 10 tiles and then back another 10 tiles, right back to where she started. So Overall, she's traveling 20 tiles in those 1.5 seconds, so she travels at a speed of 13 1/3 tiles per second, which is really, really fast. And even if you try to aim, it's going to be very, very hard to hit her while she's in this super. So she can get in and get out really, really quickly. And if she hits any other brawlers, it does damage. And I'm not sure if this is based on their max health or if this is just a fixed amount of damage. I'm led to believe that it is a fraction of their max health, simply because that's sort of her whole thing. Her main attack is based on percentage, so why wouldn't her super be? But in the Brawl Talk, it only shows this interaction with a single brawler, Nita, and she does 1,120 damage when she first hits the Nita, and then she actually was able to hit the Nita a second time with the single super, so that is something to note. You can hit people twice with the same super and deals 1,120 damage again. Nita's max health is 5,600, which is just 5 times that amount. So that means Colette would deal 20% of the max health of the brawler that you're hitting, or it's just a fixed 1,120. But personally, I like the 20% better. It makes things a lot more interesting, so I'm going to assume it's that for the rest of this video. But if not, everything I'm going to talk about still pretty much applies. So any brawlers you're hitting with this super, in addition to the damage, also get pushed back. So that is something you can take into account. They'll probably drop the ball if they're in Brawl Ball and other things like that. So this can be useful in a last minute situation if you really need that pushback effect. But the best thing to note is that dealing a fixed 20% of another brawler's max health means that it can finish off brawlers, because it's not based on their current health, only on their max health. So if you just use 4 of your normal attacks on any brawler, they're going to be below 20% of their max health. If you just keep subtracting 35%, they're going to be left with about 18% of their max health. So that means just hitting them with your super is going to finish them off. And this sort of fills in the weakness of Colette's main attack, because even though she's going to be doing like no damage against brawlers that have very little health, if she uses her super, she will be doing a ton of damage, because it doesn't matter how much health they're currently at. So just using 4 attacks and a super is going to kill any brawler in the game, whether they have 3,000 health or 10,000. And actually, if you only get 3 hits, but you manage to hit them twice with your super, like they showed in the Brawl Talk hitting the Nita twice, that also kills any brawler in the game. So now we're getting into really interesting things, because 3 hits, you have 3 ammo, so you can very, very quickly burst down any brawler in the game just by attacking 3 times and using your super and managing to hit them twice with your super. And even if you don't manage to get 3 shots off, you just hit them twice with your main attack and double hit them with your super. That only leaves them with 2% health. So basically any other brawler in the game hitting them would then finish them off. So this super is very, very interesting, not only just because you can have really quick movement, but because the damage complements her main attack so well. So now that we've gone through all the stats, I want to talk about how these stats factor into this strategies, and I want to give tips on how you can play Colette once she comes out this week. So overall, she's just going to be extremely bad in solo showdown, like I was talking about. If it's just Colette, no one else can help you deal damage, then you're just not going to be able to kill anyone with your main attack. So you're going to have to rely on your super, but then again, it could be hard to hit your super, and if you miss, then you just can't kill them until you charge up your super again. So it's going to be very, very hard to push trophies with Colette in solo showdown, but I think that's okay. Some brawlers just are very, very bad at a specific mode, like Heist is very bad for a lot of brawlers who just don't have high DPS over time, and that's okay. In basically every other mode, they can provide support and are still good brawlers overall. And I think Colette is going to be in that same boat. She's so bad in solo showdown, but in every other mode, I think she can be super useful and just really, really good overall. And now another thing to consider is that in high level trophies, what a lot of people do is a strategy called laning. You'll see this a lot in many pro matches, but basically everyone takes one of 3 lanes on a map, the left, right, or center, and they basically have a matchup with another brawler on the opposing team, and it's essentially a 1v1. A lot of times you can deal damage across lanes and things like that, but for the most part you have to deal the bulk of the damage yourself. But with Colette, we know that she's not that great in a 1v1 situation, so I don't think this laning strategy would actually work with Colette. What I think people will start doing is actually starting to only go in 2 different lanes, and essentially you have 2 people go in the same lane, one of which is the Colette. So that way the Colette can deal the bulk of the damage at the start when she's attacking people with high health and just dealing an insane amount of damage per shot, and then the person that she's with can clean up whichever brawlers they're facing. And that way you can capitalize on all the good things about Colette without putting yourself in a situation where you still need to kill brawlers with low health. So I think just the presence of Colette is really going to shake up how people start playing at higher trophy levels, and I think that's really, really interesting. It's not like Gale's gadget where just putting it down is absolutely broken and your opponents need to play around it the whole game. It's just a small change that will allow you to better capitalize on the benefits that Colette provides. So I think this is a really healthy addition to the game. Now another tip is to basically just, as I was saying, don't hit anyone below about 3,000 health. It's kind of a specific cutoff, so maybe if they're only slightly below 3,000 health, it's still not a bad idea to hit them. But for the most part, if they're at that range, it's just so little value that you get from hitting them that you would rather walk somewhere else and try to hit someone who has a higher amount of health, switch places with your teammates, that way they can finish the low health brawlers off and you can put yourself where you're going to be getting a lot more value. But if you are in that situation, what you want to make sure is that you have your super. You really just want to use your super to clean up kills, because that is the only way you're going to be able to do it. So it's very important to save your super as Colette. Yes, it's sometimes good to charge in, take a gem, and then immediately charge back out, or like a bolt in Siege to quickly go in and get out. That is very, very nice, and sometimes you might use your super for that, but mainly I think it's good to just save your super and clean up kills when you can get them. Now, if you're just playing a normal brawler and you're actually playing against a Colette, you really have to sort of play differently than you normally would. You sort of want to stop them from pulling off that double lane strategy, and you want to try to pinch her off so that way she's completely alone, and essentially make it a 1v1 between you and Colette, because if she's alone, it doesn't really matter how much health you have, you're not going to die against her. This is something that's really counterintuitive to everything you know about Brawl Stars, but if you have like 500 health against a Colette, she literally just cannot kill you unless she has her supers. So if you just keep your distance and keep that 1v1 going, it's going to be hard for her to hit her supers, and she certainly can't kill you. So you basically just have free reign over that portion of the map. You can easily kill her and she can't easily kill you. So overall, I'm really excited for this update. I think this is a super interesting brawler that's really going to shake up the game, but in a good way. So I'm excited to see how it turns out. Make sure to join the Send Squad and subscribe, turn on notifications, and go to your settings and enable notifications there as well, so you'll know when I post the Brawl Pass guide this week. But that's all for today, guys, so see you later.